Mark,
What's happening?
not much. We're here. It's
We're
here.
back.
Finally here. We're back, and it's here. We're finally
It
ready
is
to
here.
go. So we will be right back with the first issue of Dark Crisis after this.
Yes.
Yes. We are finally back, and we are covering actually two steps of Dark Crisis. We have the Road to Dark Crisis, Justice League Road to Dark Crisis, and then Dark Crisis #1. We missed the Road to Dark Crisis due to me. I was not feeling well. I was under the weather when it came out, so we decided to just roll them up into one nice big Dark Crisis ball.
Now we're on top of the weather, so let's get it.
There you go. So I'm Paul from Central, and he is
Mark from Legion of Comics.
exactly. So before we get into the Road to Dark Crisis, let's just remind everybody where we were, where we are, where we were, what's been going on, Mark.
So getting right into it, not wasting any time. We saw the death of the Justice League in Justice League issue 75. And then in a couple of issues really lead into this. We had Alpha War wrap up with Alpha War Omega. And we saw the finale of that. Deathstroke was killed by Talia al Ghul. And then his acolytes, if you will, took him to the Lazarus pit, dipped him inside to bring him back to life. And he came out clearly changed. His mind is warped, twisted, but he came out hell-bent on killing all the heroes, specifically the Teen Titans, which he's been a villain of for years. That's an important piece of information, as well as over in the most recent issue of The Flash. It ended with the Flash family realizing that Barry is missing and wanting to do something about it. And that brings us to Justice League, The Road to Dark Crisis one-shot.
There it is. And the thing I want to know, well, we'll get to Dark Crisis too, but these eyes are freaking me out.
They're gorgeous.
They are. It's like, okay, I can't wait to see who they belong to.
Exactly.
I think at some point we will, I'm sure. So
there's definitely going to be a twist. We're led to believe this is the Great Darkness, which it definitely is. But I'm sure they're going to have an extra layer added to this. It's not just going to be something that has existed and been thwarted and been stopped previously decades ago in comics. There'll be an extra layer of something to it.
Right. So the Justice League Road to Dark Crisis was a series of short stories, basically by all of the contributors, exactly 5, by all the contributors of whoever's doing Dark Crisis proper with Joshua Williamson, or doing some of the tie-ins like Jeremy Adams, and kind of I think it's just kind of what it did for me anyway. Was it set the chessboard where it finally needed to be, put all the pieces in place to roll into Dark Crisis #1.
As well as it was a great epilogue to the death of the Justice League. So we didn't have to deal with how is everybody responding and reacting to that death. It's handled in here as wrapping up that and getting us straight to issue 1 without having any spinning of the tires in the actual 7-issue event.
Right. And so first story was Nightwing and Jonathan Kent, right? And it's funny because they kind of assume the roles of their mentors in both places, but they actually end up doing the opposite of what their mentors probably would have done in a lot of ways, at least, So Jonathan is basically freaked out about what's going on, and Nightwing says they're not dead. We don't know that they're dead. So
yeah, it was pretty cool to see that, because one thing that we've already touched on was seeing what roles are the existing heroes going to fall into, and we're already seeing Nightwing being looked up to. We saw it touched on in the Superman Son of Kal-El run, but it's really reinforcing it that he is now has a seniority level amongst the heroes community. And Dan Jurgens did the artwork for this one, which I thought was absolutely beautiful. And it was cool seeing how human John was. You really see his human side come out in this story. And it was funny watching Nightwing trying to be what he thinks other people expect him to be, playing it straight, hiding his emotions like Batman typically would. But he quickly drops the facade. They talk and they kind of get right through that. And he's like, one of those moments, like, I don't know why I was trying to do this. Let me just be 100% with you. I'm concerned as well, but I have experienced these kind of things in my history in this community. So then they had a cool little action scene where we're seeing small villain cells busting out everywhere around the world, and they got to handle one of those together. It was really fun.
Yeah, it was funny because one of the first things that Jonathan Kent does is he's like, okay, you know what, we're planning this memorial for them. Would you be willing to speak? And Nightwing is kind of at first like, I don't know, like they're not really. He can't admit they're dead, but the more that they talk things through, he basically decides at the end of that particular story that he really does need to be the one, to give the talk to everyone that is remaining that misses the heroes. Um, so that was the first one, and it's, funny because the title of it was basically just Team Up. This is like World's Finest 2.0 kind of
Yeah,
kind of a thing. So
and it works
from
good.
there
They
we
have a great
yeah,
dynamic.
absolutely, yep. From there we moved to the Flash, both Wally West and Wallace. Kid Flash, and again, this is a whole nother thing where every single story takes that string of legacy, down to mentor, everything, which is
Yes.
really what we're told the whole Dark Crisis is going to be about. So, what did you think of this the Flash story?
I really enjoyed it. There's been a great setup to this piece in the Flash proper series. In the last two issues have leaned heavily into the concept of Flash, Kid Flash. They're bringing Wallace back uh, into the spotlight with Wally, and we get to see their families, how they're kind of worrying for them. We kind of see that normally with the Flash family. Like there's heavy concern for what's going on with the Supes and their family, and their whole family were gathered together, wondering what's going on with the death of the Justice League, with Barry missing. And again, we see a seasoned hero really trying to shrug it off. They process it differently because people went into this before it even started criticizing it. Oh, they're not really dead. The Justice League. Well, that's a given. Not even just because we know as the readers, but it's actually part of the story. It's not
Right.
meant to be like the death of Superman or the death of Captain Marvel back in the day. This isn't meant to be like that. They're actually acknowledging it. The heroes are acknowledging it. And we see that again from the Flash family. And I thought it was cool that Wally deals with it as any Flash does. You just go. We have a problem, just run, and we'll find a solution somewhere along the way. And that's what him and Kid Flash end up doing. They have some great dialogue talking about this, processing what to do as they're taking out, again, some outbreaks of villain cells. They was it Giganta that popped up, and
Right.
they just run up her, and Decker save some civilians along the way. Tell her to go sit down, don't come back out, or we'll drop you and leave you down, kind of thing.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I think that you just made in there too. Was Joshua Williamson and the whole Dark Crisis in the past? This story would have been, yes, Justice League is dead, and then somewhere on the last page of the last issue, they would have come back and it would have been, oh, they're all back, right? But this whole thing has that thread through it where, okay, you know what? Are they dead? Are they really dead? You've seen this before. They're not dead. Are they dead? So it kind of acknowledges what we
Yeah,
feel as a reader, you know. So
absolutely.
so I think that's absolutely important to what they're trying to do. So
Yeah, mad
uh,
respect to Joshua Williamson for not assuming the readers are going to fall for something like that. He's not trying to make us fall for something like that. He's on board with us. We all know that there's something else to it. So if you're thinking that this is just a knock them off, bring them back format thing, you're absolutely wrong. They're handling it in a way that has never been handled before. So that's
yep,
enjoyable aspect of it for me.
absolutely. Um, Third story brings back one of my favorite characters, Hal Jordan, and it also has Jackson Hyde
Boom.
from
Yes.
Aquaman. So um, and it basically is, again, it's a legacy, and it's a mentor. Hal has been off the board for a long time, and I think this is really kind of, again, putting his chess piece in place. He's basically going to be, along with Black Adam, who we know is still alive. He's going to be someone from the Justice League proper, who is going to represent the mentors, and then they'll have all of the legacy characters that are working with it as well. um, and this kind of goes to the whole story is all about misunderstanding intentions, and we have that, is it a predator, is it prey, what is it doing, type of a thing, with the monster that's in the ocean. And it basically, Hal Jordan is taking that, why isn't anybody searching for the Justice League? Why are we doing all of these, things, all these um,
Memorials.
memorials, right? And why, what would Barry Allen have done, type of a thing. So, and I don't recall if that was in here or if that was actually in the Dark
That was
Crisis
number
proper, but
one.
that was
Yeah,
in
that was
one.
number.
Okay. Yeah. So we'll get to that. But this kind of, brings Hal back into the story, into the into the DC universe proper, and sets him up as, I think, an important part as well of Dark Crisis.
So this little story I enjoyed. The dynamic was a little bit different, where the other ones were more of like a conversation that gives you a little tidbit. This one was actually like a short story. Like it actually had a plot thread in this one, where you had an invading army that was made out of some kind of marine life coming, and he came to Earth, finally getting him back. Like you said, they found an excuse to get him back on the chessboard for this event, but he came down looking for Aquaman to communicate with it, to find the better way, because there's always a better way.
Mhm.
So I thought that was cool to get an actual little story in there. The artwork was a little wonky, but it was very vibrant and colorful. But some of the expressions on faces were a little weird. But I like Jackson a lot from the Young Justice series. That was my first exposure to him. So I'm excited to see them bring him into the main part of this event as well.
Right. And he also, the very last thing he says in the story, if I recall correctly, was he tells Jackson, you young heroes are going to have to be the ones that are going to have to step up now. So you guys are going to be, what's going to save this world or whatever, help us do whatever we need to do to make sure that everyone is safe.
Yeah, and people tend to forget, like your general audience, you're not too crazy in depth reader. You tend to forget that these heroes might be the next generation now, but they've been around for a long time. Jackson is not a new character. I mean, he's new relative to people that from the Golden Age, but he's been around for a while. So these are at this point seasoned characters, So
yeah,
let's see what they got. Let's see what they can really do when they're up against the big odds.
Right. Yeah, he's been around for probably better part of a decade, if not. I think he goes back to Brightest Day, I believe. That was a series he first appeared in.
That was like the late 2000s, right?
Yeah. Yep. So then next we turn our attention away from the heroes and we go to Pariah.
Yeah, I love this one.
It was great, and I also love the visual part of it, how it kind of goes from color to just line art on pages and then back to color again, and it's like it plays with the medium a little bit too.
So what I thought was super cool about this is Pariah, for those that are new to this event, he's really the catalyst of the DC Crisis when it comes to the stories. The original Crisis was kicked off by this scientist from a different world creating a machine, accidentally unleashing the antimatter and everything. And his penance for this was to be a pariah in the multiverse, to watch worlds end. So he pretty much gets pulled to crises where he just has to suffer and watch the death, destruction, and mayhem for what he did to add to it in the universe. So we got to see for the first time, what does he do when he's not at those events? Where does he exist? What does he go through? And that's what this story was. We see him existing in some kind of phantom zone, if you will, just witnessing his loved ones that are just like mirages that are just tormenting him and tormenting him and tormenting him. And it was really telling on like his behavior that we've seen, the way he acts and other things, how he's just like he comes off as whiny and just broken, and we can see why. He's literally just tortured. Even when he's not watching end of world events, he's just tortured.
Right. And they keep harping on this, you need to build the machine, right, to save. Yeah. Right. So I'm looking forward to exactly what that's going to be somewhere down the road. And at the end of the story, he does agree to build this machine. So, and then
the great darkness takes hold of him.
Exactly. Right. So yeah, this was, I think, a critical story to the whole Dark Crisis, and gives a really good backstory to Pariah and what his role is in all of this. And then the final story, we have Nocturna, right? And we have spoiler. Yep. Stephanie Brown, who is a little bit dissed by Nocturna. She's like, you're not even a sidekick. You're a nobody.
Yeah, this was pretty cool to kind of take it down a peg, to give us a kind of a whole array of different dynamic in this one shot. This was very street level. Like how do the more simple, basic B and C listers handle this? And it was cool seeing Noctera as a villain, not knowing what to do. She's like, I don't even know how to respond or react. So I'm supposed to be a bad guy. Let me go break into somewhere and steal something. I don't want anything in there, but just let me go do it. And we get
Right.
spoilers intercepting her, stopping her, and they start to fight and then just stop because they're both like, we don't know what we're supposed to be doing. They kind of confide in each other even, which I thought was really cool. Like they're kind of just don't know how to react to the death of the Justice League. And eventually we get the cool little big Easter egg, the lead in at the end of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's basically the new, for lack of, I mean, I think it's the Secret Society of Supervillains from if you were around in the 70s, you know. And it's funny because right from there they'll jump into Dark Crisis #1 before too long, and so she basically embraces that, you know. She embraces the dark side and joins Firefly and geez, there's who else? There was like a million people in that
There was a
last
lot of people in there. I
page.
like how a lot
Yeah,
of them were C and D list villains themselves.
yeah,
Like
yeah. You got Banshee.
the
You
Gentleman
got
Ghost was in there, wasn't
Gentleman
he?
Ghost. Yep, yep, yep,
Yes.
yep. Prometheus
Yeah.
was there as well. So, and then it basically says at the very end, okay, now we're on to Dark Crisis #1, and so that's where we are. Oh, nice one. You got the
This was the
Greg
only
Capullo.
one at the shop the day that they came there. The rest of them were running late or damaged or something. I don't remember what. So there's other covers they were waiting for, but this was it, the Capullo.
That one's
I
also
want
done in
my
a
day
foil
cover.
too, by the way. In case you're wondering, there
Huh?
is a foil of that one. That one's done in a
I'm sure
foil
there
too.
is. You would know. At this point, I believe that you have some kind of machine at your house where you just run comics through them and have them foiled
I
yourself.
I just make them myself. It's like it's easier that
Yeah,
way,
it's
you
so
know.
much easier.
Yeah. I'm keeping Reynolds aluminum in business, really.
Yeah.
Um, and so now we're into Dark Crisis #1. Again, uh, got the wraparound cover for the main cover with the eyes. Got to have the eyes,
The
always with
eyes
the
are
eyes. Okay. Now the first 8 pages or so we've already seen. They were in the Free Comic Book Day #1 or #0 rather.
yeah, the
But
eulogy.
it still is, you know, it's important that it starts off that way and it talks about the dark and the light, right, and the difference between the two. And you know, at one point they say there will always be darkness. Um, but there's a great splash page that was also in the Free Comic Book Day, but I just can't see enough of that, of um, all the major heroes with their sidekicks, and some of the first crises that come along. You know, it really kind of does. One of the things that I think Dark Crisis #1 does well, I think, is besides advancing the story, that the people that have read everything before it, is you don't really need to have read everything before it either. You know, in
It
order to get
stands
into
on
this.
its own merits for sure, especially if you grab that Free Comic Book Day book that included the little excerpts that kind of catch you up on the history, the key points that they're really going to be playing into. The more you know about the legacy of DC, the more you get as well, though. So it kind of plays to both.
Right, absolutely. And so after we see the 8 pages that we've already seen in the Free Comic Book Day, that's again when Hal Jordan comes back into the story, and he's
Yeah,
talking to. That's where
he
he
was
says
pissed.
basically, yeah,
Yeah.
he's like, "You believe Black Adam? What is that?
Yes,
How do you
he
guys suddenly
shows up
just believe Black
asking
Adam?"
what's going on.
Yeah,
He spoke with Jackson, and he's like, "All right, let's go find everyone and get caught up proper." And he starts talking to Nightwing and Wally, and they inform Green Lantern that they're getting their information from none other than Black Adam, who Green Lantern has been off world, has no clue that Black Adam has been brought into the Hall of Justice. He's a part of the team. He's been running around fighting crime with Batman, Wonder Woman, Superman. In his mind is absolutely blown. He's like, "You actually believe this guy? Do you not remember how many times he tried to kill us, to destroy the
right,
world?"
right,
They're
right,
just forced into a corner with Black Adam being their only source of information. And John really stepped up and said, "Look, man, my dad trusted him. My dad sees something in him. We have to take that into account." And they
right,
start moving forward from there.
right. And so then, so Hal talks to Wally, and that's where we get the first time where basically Hal says to Wally, "You need to find Barry." right?
Yeah.
And so so that's what we're going to get in the Flash tie-in issues that are going to come up. And he says, I'll look for, the bad guy. I'll look for the perp. He says that, everyone did that. And so John basically then just says, okay, you know what? I'm going to go and form a new Justice League then, you know? So he basically takes
Right.
off,
Yeah.
and he has mixed success. Um, his first person that he goes to is Yara Flor, Wonder Girl, and she basically says, "Yeah, I'm not going to do that." She basically tells him, "Yeah, I don't really work well with teams. Uh, I need to basically guard, what it is that I have here. I wish you a lot of luck, but I won't be part of that." Um,
Next stop was
she
New
basically
York City.
correct, correct. And he has almost as much success. He has more success seemingly with the new Batman, but he basically
Jace.
says, Jace basically says, yeah, that's really not for me either, because the last World's Finest team up didn't end that well, because they're
Yeah.
both dead supposedly.
Yeah. Took a shot at it. Took a shot.
Yeah, exactly. So
So I
then we
thought that
go
was
to
an interesting take because we're getting all the assumed characters. They started with Yara and Jace. They're on covers. Everyone's waiting on them to be put together, and we're getting no's out the gate from them. But that's when they take us to this really fun page splash, which is a laundry list of heroes and villains and just their reactions, yeses and nos and stuff, which was
yeah.
that was a really fun page.
It was, because their reactions are pitch perfect for a lot of them too. Like Jaime Reyes is like, yeah, I'll do that. And Booster Gold and Ted Cord are basically like fist pumping, like, yeah, we finally got to be her, part of the Justice League. And we get Firestorm, who says, yeah, I really can't do that after, it's like we don't really know what he's talking about in a lot of ways. As well as people, Shazam, says you really shouldn't be trusting Black Adam. We get Naomi, who feels guilt over the fact that she wasn't able to, to save them. And Harley Quinn is basically, really, you want me to be part of the Justice League?
Blue Beetle and
She's
Booster
like
Gold
thrilled.
having the final panel was great, where they just like dap it up.
Yeah. Yep.
It was really cool. Firestorm
so we end up
was kind of broken. He's like, I can't after,
right. Yeah.
I wasn't too sure what he was referring to. It made me think back to Final Crisis when wasn't it him that like had that little issue in Final Crisis where he accidentally turned that entire group of people into stone and they couldn't figure out how to turn them back. And I think it was later revealed that it was Dr. Manhattan inside of him or inhabiting him. Yeah. So I kind of got vibe that that's what they were referring to, because he hasn't been forefronted in anything recently.
Right. Yeah, I think you're right. I hadn't even thought of that, but I think you're absolutely correct. So we end up with a new Justice League that has Supergirl and Blue Beetle, Jaime Reyes, and Booster Gold and Ted Cord, and it's got Damian Wayne hiding the new Dr. Light,
Killer Frost,
Frankenstein,
Harley Quinn, Frankenstein.
Harley Quinn, right? Which is just a huge difference to any Justice League we have ever seen before.
So I'm a fan of hodgepodge teams, and even I'm like, where I'm looking like this is going to be interesting. I wonder if this is like a Suicide Squad moment almost, where you throw together a team to attempt to do something good and not all of you make it back.
Right. And then Black Adam sees them, and what does he do? He goes, "This one's gonna stab you in the back. This one's gonna stab you in the back.
This one's gonna run away." Like, he was not impressed.
Right, exactly. And he says, the world needs protectors, not children. And again, playing into that whole, these legacy heroes are going to step up and they're going to be the protectors.
Which I thought was a very awkward thing to say. It needs protectors, not children, when there's only like 3 people on the team that you can even consider younger heroes. You know what I mean? Like the team consisted of pretty much like way seasoned characters. Dr. Light is the younger version. I think they kind of stepped this one up and introduced her in like that Generation Shattered thing that they did. Mm-hmm. And other than that, you have like John. Damian's not considered young by anybody, maybe in age, but like by nobody. That dude's a killer.
Right, right. And Black Adam tells John, you know the person who should be leading the Justice League. It should be, and you flip the page, and the first panel you see is Nightwing, right?
Mhm.
At the Titans Tower, which is
This is
where
where
the
this
main.
book really gets real, by the way. This is where it actually turns into a crisis level book right here.
Hmm. Absolutely, because coming out of nowhere is basically Deathstroke and the Secret Society of Supervillains, and they are on a rampage.
Yeah, it
And they're
starts
and
out like the warning that they got that they were even coming was Chupacabra walking
Yep.
in, looking like severely wounded, possibly mortally wounded, bleeding, can't hardly stand, and that's when they just get an onslaught of villains
Mhm.
on the tower.
Right, and you find out again that this is the Deathstroke is leading this group, and they have managed to capture Garth, Beast Boy,
Beast Boy.
right? And so you get what I think is a call out back to Countdown to Infinite Crisis. You get a Blue Beetle moment here with
Definitely.
Beast Boy, um,
So
and
there's a small amount of dialogue that takes
right,
place with Slade and Garth. Garth
right,
is pretty much asking, "Dude, what are you doing? Why are you doing this right now? Like, why are we doing this?" Again, these are characters that have been back and forth with each other for decades. Deathstroke
hmm
premiered in Teen Titans, so there's almost like a personal relationship. And you know how we have these heroes and villains that are just at this forever. They're always going to be back and forth. So it's almost like they know each other on a personal level, and you really feel that with this exchange. And
right,
like my skin crawled during this moment. I'm like, oh my god.
right. And then we get the final moment with Pariah, right? And we kind of on the very last page see that the Justice League maybe isn't dead, right?
Well, we didn't even get to what happened with Beast Boy in
Well,
that moment.
okay, go ahead.
I think that's crucial, very
Hmm.
crucial. Like they're sitting there, and Slade kind of just sets the tone. Like this isn't a normal Slade. Like we mentioned
Right.
at the beginning of this video, coming out of the Lazarus pit, he is
Hmm.
changed and crazed. Garth asks him all these questions, and he says I can't remember the exact, but it's like something along the lines of "It's not happening like that," or "It's different this time," or "This is it." And he calls him by his name. He calls him Garth, puts a gun to his
Hmm.
head, and blows his head off. And then they go at the tower. So they killed Beast Boy, like
Right.
killed him proper, like he said, in homage to like the way that Maxwell Lord shot Ted Cord in the head, kicking off Infinite Crisis. It's like the firing gun at the start of a race. This crisis is off and running.
Right. Absolutely. That's a great point. And yeah, and it's going to be interesting to see because this is not a Deathstroke that we've seen before. This is
No,
Deathstroke on steroids, basically. And like you said too, they have in real years they have like 40 some years of history, and he never really has ever stopped blaming the fact that the Teen Titans to him killed his son,
mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah,
Way back in New Teen Titans #2, I think it was.
yeah, and he just lost during the Alpha War. Not only did he die, but toward the front of it, we also had God, what was it? Respawn die, who's like
Right,
his son as well.
right.
So he's lost a lot.
Yeah, and I think that that's important too. I mean, because you mentioned it at the beginning, is there are, I think, some of these what I call, for lack of a better term, like stealth crossovers or whatever. We had the Alpha War. This impacts here. We had,
War
for
for
lack of
Earth
a
3.
better, exactly. Even Flashpoint Beyond has some.
That's turned key as well. I'm glad you mentioned that
Exactly.
because
Yeah.
we have a character introduced in Flashpoint Beyond who's actually hiding in the Flashpoint universe from the Dark Crisis, and
Right.
that's all that they tell us in that. Thomas Wayne finds out that Psycho Pirate has come over here to hide from a Dark Crisis, and he goes to talk to him, and he's been killed. He's been made
Right.
to look like he committed suicide in jail. So that we did get that little Easter egg tie-in. So Flashpoint Beyond is not a standalone
Right.
event itself either. It's clutch.
Yeah, and I think that what it does is even without having a Dark Crisis tie-in slapped on the cover, I think you're going to see how the tendrils from Dark Crisis are going to, work their way into different parts of the DC universe.
Joshua Williamson has been the architect of the Omniverse thing and he's really going to test his mettle by his own choice. He's really going to see what he can do, and he has no better person than Jeff Johns heading that to be working with, who I would argue Joshua Williamson has got the potential to be this generation's Jeff Johns for DC Comics. So it's phenomenal seeing these two writers both heading a major summer event simultaneously. And I can't wait to see how they really play off each other's strengths.
Right. And so the final scene is in Multiverse 2. It's Pariah. Again, building his machine. But we also seem to see as though, the Justice League may not be dead. They're all in kind of these different bubbles. So I think what's happening is they're all in these different bubbles, and they're on these worlds that are going to be shown in the Dark Crisis Worlds Without a Justice League. I think that's where all of these heroes are.
Yeah. So spoiler, that's exactly correct, because they have been out in interviews. Joshua Williamson has spoke on this, and so the dialogue leading into seeing the Justice League at the end of this book was kind of important. We have Pariah building his machine, talking verbally to somebody that we can't see what they're saying. So he's clearly talking to the Great Darkness, explaining to him to calm down. I've got this. I'm doing it. As you can see, there's so much hope coming from Earth Zero. There's so much, and we can use that as a weapon. As he's building his machine, then you turn the page and you see it looks like you get a close-up shot of all the Justice League members that we saw die inside of bubbles, basically, and Pariah sitting there looking at them. And he's looking like he's trying to harness hope as a weapon. We saw from, and it's important, we saw from Death Metal with, God, what was her name? Perpetua, that she was using actual crisis energy. Like, we're dealing with energies and forces and stuff when you get into these big things. So now they're dealing with hope, which they made very clear in Doomsday Clock, that hope was the strongest essence out there. That's literally what Dr. Manhattan found his humanity in, to stop tampering, to stop any kind of fight that was going to happen. So Pariah is onto that. Thus, again, tendrils, like you mentioned. There's so many tendrils reaching everywhere that you can find story plots and threads. But he's got all of them, and we do have these one-shots, and we already saw Barry. If you read Justice League Incarnate, we know where Barry is. We as the readers know that he is on a world that it looks like a picture-perfect vision made for him. All of these heroes are encapsulated in these different worlds, and we're going to get to see in these one-shots how they're responding to them. Some might not know that they're in them. They might just be going through the motion, living the Leave It to Beaver lifestyle. Some might be trying to fight their way out. Some might be trying to figure it out and just saying, but I'm excited for those. So we know that they're alive. Joshua Williamson's not playing with it. He's letting us know, but what does it mean? They're alive in what way? Can they just be brought back? Is it what's the deal with it? So that's what's going to be fun about this, I think.
Absolutely. And the other thing too is that the Pariah mentions that the Red Skies will be back too. Red Skies is
signature for Crisis.
It's signature for Crisis. So
they even did it with the Justice League film. When Steppenwolf put the shields up, and at least the theatrical cut, they did the Red Skies, but visually it was handled poorly, and Snyder took it away just for the sake. But that's why there were Red Skies at the finale of that first Justice League movie. They wanted to do that.
And so that's where the issue ends. And it says in the next issue, we have the assault on Titan's Tower. So we're going to get a continuation of where we were.
Big battle between Nightwing and Deathstroke.
Exactly. And we have the checklist, which actually this checklist that's in the issue is not entirely up to date because now the Flash tie-in has gone from 3 issues to 4 issues.
Oh, wow.
There is one that I know you're looking forward to, Mark. It's an I Am Batman tie-in.
Who's writing it? That'll determine if I'm looking forward.
It's the guy you don't want writing it.
Yeah. Well, luckily, you know how event tie-ins go. You're beholden to the bigger narrative. So, yeah.
And then there was one more.
Just as a disclaimer, he did great in Future State on it. It's when he tries to tackle other characters, he just has no respect for them. But he does fine with it. He does fine with Jace, and I really enjoy Jace's character. He's got a cool setup to be Batman.
And then there was one more, and I can't recall the name of it now. Something about the war or something like that. I can't think of. There's another one shot that was added. I would want to say in November, I think maybe, but I don't recall exactly what it was. But we'll have it for the next time. So it's getting bigger. the crisis is getting bigger as we go along, and we'll see what they add. And then the last thing I did want to mention, because this is just so important to any crisis, is we got that spread, that George Perez spread at the back. It was so great to see. And this is going to actually be it's going to be a poster with Hero Initiative. It's going to be one of the variant covers to issue number 7 as well. But I think it just kind of, besides what George Perez meant to DC and to Marvel, what he meant to the crisis, I think is just, obviously so important. So to see all those artists come together and do that jam piece
It
was
was
just
awesome. And I love how they have the checklist at the bottom. They have the numbers on the characters where you could go down and see the character and who drew them for this mural. It was awesome.
Yep. And so that'll take us to, I want to say, I think Young Justice, Dark Crisis Young Justice number 1 is next. And then we'll have a Flash issue in June. And then we'll be right back into Dark Crisis number 2 next month. So, man, just so much going on. I'm all a tingle.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So again, everybody who's watching this, be sure to leave a comment down below. At the end of this, we're going to be doing Dark Crisis related giveaways and stuff. And the more you comment on all these videos, increase your chances of being entered into those giveaways. So don't forget to do that. Be sure to hit that thumbs up and all that good stuff as well.
Excellent. So that's going to do it for this episode number 3 of DC Dark Crisis Deep Dive. I am Paul. He is Mark.
Right.
So don't forget, make sure you go over and subscribe to Mark's channel too, Legion of Comics. He does so much great content. It's too numerous to mention all the good content that you put out. So, but Sunday nights, definitely. As a spoiler-filled look at the week back. So it's a great way to wrap up your week. So thank you all for joining us. We will see you in the next episode of DC Dark Crisis Deep Dive. And as of right now, you are leaving Sector 2815.